Captain Jake Morrison tried not to fidget as he stood beside Ambassador Lisa Hayes and Admiral Rick Cooper in the vast Galactic Council chamber. The curved walls soared hundreds of meters overhead, adorned with the emblems of thousands of worlds spanning 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. The chamber had been designed to humble visitors, and despite his years of diplomatic service, Jake still felt like an ant beneath the towering crystalline dome. The Council will now vote on Resolution 7849B regarding the status of Earth and its colonies, announced Chancellor Crick, a willowy being whose translucent skin rippled with each word. The Chancellor's 7 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of displeasure that Jake had learned to recognize over the years. Jake glanced at Lisa, whose face remained professionally composed despite the tension that had built during the 3-day debate. Earth's population had surpassed 22 billion, with another 18 billion spread across its frontier colonies. By galactic standards, this was unconscionable. Most council species maintained carefully controlled populations, some reproducing only once per century. They viewed humanity's explosive growth as both vulgar and threatening. Humans don't understand balance, Delegate Zor had declared yesterday, his chitinous mandibles clicking with disapproval. They consume, they multiply, they expand without constraint. The frontier systems they've claimed could support dozens of balanced species for millennia, yet humans will strip them bare within generations. Ambassador Hayes had countered with humanity's achievements, the terraforming techniques that had transformed barren worlds, the medical advances freely shared, the cultural exchanges that enriched the galactic community. But Jake had sensed the Council's deep-seated prejudice against Earth's technological path, particularly their integration of artificial intelligence in daily life, something strictly forbidden under galactic law after the AI wars 3,000 years ago. Admiral Cooper stood rigid in his dress uniform, medals gleaming under the chamber's ambient light. Jake knew the Admiral had fought for a more aggressive stance in these negotiations, but President Alvarez had insisted on diplomacy. "We cannot afford to alienate the Council," she had said during their final briefing. "We need time." The vote stands at 723 in favor, 124 opposed, Chancellor Crick announced, the chamber's perfect acoustics carrying the words to every corner. Jake felt his stomach drop. Ambassador Hayes gasped softly beside him. Resolution 7849B is therefore enacted with immediate effect, continued the Chancellor. The species designated human is hereby ordered to withdraw all presence from current territories to a region not to exceed 100 light-years from their homeworld within 50 standard years. Failure to comply will result in enforcement actions as outlined in Section 42 of the Galactic Charter. Exile. The Council had actually voted to exile humanity. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady despite the circumstances. Chancellor, members of the Council, I implore you to reconsider. This resolution condemns billions to overcrowding and resource scarcity. Our colonies are our lifeline. The Council has spoken. Ambassador, interrupted Crick. Your species' unchecked expansion threatens the balance we have maintained for 50,000 years. You have your time frame. Use it wisely. Admiral Cooper's hand moved to his collar, adjusting his insignia in what appeared to be a nervous gesture. But Jake recognized it as the covert signal they had established before the session. Operation Exodus is go. For 3 years, Earth's military and intelligence communities had prepared for this possibility, developing contingency plans that President Alvarez had authorized but hoped never to implement. Now, with a simple touch to his collar, Cooper had set those plans in motion. As the Council session adjourned, Jake followed Lisa and Cooper through the soaring hallways of the galactic headquarters. None of them spoke until they reached the secure confines of the Earth Embassy. "They actually did it," Lisa whispered, her professional facade finally cracking. 50 years to abandon everything we've built beyond Sol's neighborhood. Cooper's expression remained impassive. "Madame Ambassador, Captain Morrison, We need to commence official compliance procedures immediately. For the record, the emphasis on his last words confirmed what Jake already knew. What was done officially would differ drastically from what happened behind the scenes. The president is being notified now, Cooper continued, activating a secure holographic display. Phase 1 begins at 600 tomorrow. Captain Morrison, you'll oversee diplomatic documentation. Ambassador, you'll need to attend every council session and file daily compliance reports. While you do what exactly? Lisa asked sharply. Cooper's eyes met hers. While I ensure humanity survives. Ambassador, one way or another. Jake understood the Admiral's cold calculus. With Earth already desperately overcrowded, falling back to a 100-light-year bubble would mean starvation, resource wars, possibly even civilization collapse. Operation Exodus wasn't just a contingency. It was now humanity's only hope. Within 24 hours, the first phase was underway. On view screens across council space, humans could be seen evacuating outposts, dismantling research stations, and withdrawing from frontier worlds. Council observers nodded with satisfaction as colony ships departed, setting course for the designated human reservation. What they didn't see were the shadow transports slipping away during sensor gaps, carrying not evacuees returning to Earth, but pioneers headed far beyond galactic jurisdiction. For every official evacuation, 3 clandestine missions departed for regions the Council never monitored, the deep dark beyond the Orion Spur. At Earth's Lunar Command, Dr. Amy Stone worked 18-hour shifts compiling dossiers on all 412 sentient species recognized by the Council, focusing on biological vulnerabilities, cultural weak points, and military capabilities. Beside her, Kate Brown analyzed the voting patterns and political alignments of all 847 Council members, identifying potential allies and implacable enemies. Admiral, Amy said during one of Cooper's inspection visits, if we're evacuating anyway, why gather all this intelligence? Cooper's gaze was steady. Dr. Stone, we're not evacuating, we're expanding. And to expand successfully, we need to understand both our friends and our enemies. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, engineer Sam Wright oversaw the construction of 12 massive fabrication complexes disguised as mining operations. These would soon be dismantled into components and secretly transported beyond the frontier to build the ghost outposts. Fully functional colonies hidden in dead systems the Council had dismissed as worthless. Each outpost needs to support at least 5 million people, Sam explained to his team. Self-sufficient, defensible, and completely off the galactic grid. We have 5 years to establish all 12 before the Council starts inspecting our withdrawal progress. Lisa Hayes found herself living a double life. By day, she negotiated the terms of humanity's exile, fighting for every concession while appearing to accept the inevitable. By night, she reviewed reports on Operation Exodus, watching as humanity's future was secured in secret. I don't know if I can keep doing this, she confessed to Jake during a rare private moment, 6 months into the operation. Lying to the Council, smiling at delegates who voted against us, pretending to accept our fate while we're actively defying their decree. Jake understood her moral quandary. He felt it too. Is there another choice? If we announced our plans, they'd send fleets to stop us. Billions would die. And what happens when they eventually discover the truth? Lisa asked. They'll view it as the ultimate betrayal. By then, Jake replied, we'll be established beyond their reach. And maybe, just maybe, we'll have found something out there that changes everything. He couldn't have known how prophetic those words would prove to be. 3 years into Operation Exodus, Captain Dan Miller guided the scout ship Silent Runner into uncharted territory, 200 light-years beyond the galactic rim. His mission: identify potential locations for major settlement hubs far from Council jurisdiction. Picking up unusual readings from the 4th planet, reported his sensor officer. Appears to be artificial structures, but no life signs or energy signatures. Miller frowned. This system isn't supposed to have been settled. It hasn't, sir. At least not recently. Dating suggests these structures are approximately 50,000 years old. The discovery of System X7742 changed everything. Below the surface of the barren fourth planet, Miller's team found vast chambers filled with advanced technology, unlike anything humanity had encountered. More importantly, they discovered functional machines, data archives, automated defenses, and what appeared to be a monitoring station tracking something approaching from beyond the galactic boundary. The machines had been built by a species calling themselves the Precursors, who had once dominated the galaxy before mysteriously disappearing. Their archives spoke of a terrible enemy they called the Devourers, an extragalactic horde that swept through the Milky Way every 70,000 years, consuming all advanced life before retreating to dark space. And according to the Precursor calculations, the Devourers were due to return in approximately 50 years, just as humanity would be completing its Council-mandated withdrawal. It can't be coincidence, Dr. Amy Stone told Admiral Cooper after analyzing the initial data from X7742. The Council vote, the 50-year time frame, the predicted return of these Devourers, they align too perfectly. Cooper's face had aged a decade in just 3 years. You think the Council knows that they're deliberately concentrating us for slaughter? Not the full Council, Amy clarified, but possibly the inner circle, the species that have been members longest. The timing suggests they might be sacrificing us to save themselves. Whether deliberate sacrifice or cosmic coincidence, the discovery galvanized Operation Exodus. What had begun as a desperate bid for survival now took on new urgency and purpose. For the next 7 years, humanity maintained its dual existence. To the Galactic Council, they were a chastened species dutifully abandoning their colonies and consolidating within their assigned boundaries. Ambassador Hayes continued her diplomatic mission, negotiating for extensions and exceptions, while reporting steady progress on the withdrawal. Beyond the Council's sight, Earth's true efforts expanded exponentially. The Ghost outposts grew into fully fledged colonies, housing tens of millions. Research teams at System X7742 deciphered more of the Precursor archives, extracting star charts, species profiles, and weapon schematics that had once held the Devourers at bay. Security Chief Alex Reed established a network of sympathetic contacts among Rim worlds, species who doubted the Council's wisdom or feared being similarly exiled. Gradually, these allies were secretly evacuated to human settlements, bringing valuable skills and diverse perspectives to the growing confederation in the deep dark. Not everyone supported this approach. Some human commanders questioned the allocation of precious resources to study ancient ruins and prepare for a threat that might never materialize. We're betting our future on the equivalent of an alien ghost story, argued General Williams during a particularly heated command meeting. I've seen the data, countered Captain Miller, now promoted to oversee all operations in the X7742 sector. The mathematical models, the astronomical observations, the residual radiation patterns, they all confirm the Precursor predictions. The Devourers are real, and they're coming. As the debate raged within human leadership, the first clandestine shipyards began construction of vessels unlike any humanity had previously conceived. Guided by Precursor schematics and powered by technologies that manipulated fundamental forces, these ships were designed not just for survival, but for warfare on a scale the galaxy hadn't witnessed in 50 millennia. 15 years after the Exile vote, humanity's secret infrastructure spanned hundreds of uncharted systems. The ghost colonies had grown into thriving worlds, with populations in the hundreds of millions. Research outposts had unlocked Precursor technologies that transformed human understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness itself. and deep within artificial moons, orbiting dead stars, the largest ships ever built by human hands took shape. Dreadnoughts, capable of harnessing the power of collapsed stars. Ambassador Hayes, now in her 60s, continued her diplomatic charade, though the strain showed in her eyes and the silver threading her once dark hair. Admiral Cooper had officially retired, replaced in public records by younger officers. While continuing to direct Operation Exodus from the shadows, Captain Morrison coordinated the increasingly complex web of information flowing between Earth and the ghost colonies, ensuring the Council remained ignorant of humanity's true activities. Then, in the 23rd year after the Exile decree, the precursor monitoring stations registered the first anomalies, disturbances in the fabric of spacetime at the galactic boundary, precisely where the ancient records predicted the Devourers would emerge. "It's happening," Dr. Amy Stone told the assembled leadership of what was now called the Human Confederation. Exactly as the precursors foretold, the Devourers are awakening. The next 5 years saw frantic preparation throughout human space. The Ghost Fleet, now comprising over 300 capital ships and thousands of support vessels, conducted battle simulations based on precursor tactical data. Evacuation protocols were refined for allied species still living under Council jurisdiction. Earth itself transformed its orbital defenses while maintaining the facade of compliance with the Exile decree. Ambassador Hayes made her final appearance before the Galactic Council at the 30-year mark of the withdrawal period. "Humanity has completed 60% of the mandated relocation," she reported, her voice steady despite the monumental deception. "We request the Council's patience as we manage the logistical challenges of our remaining operations." The truth, hidden from all but a select few Council members who had been secretly briefed, was that humanity had already relocated, not in retreat, but in expansion. The human presence now extended farther into the galaxy than ever before, poised in a defensive perimeter that followed the ancient precursor battle lines. In the 32nd year, the waiting ended. The first Devourer scouts breached the galactic boundary in a region far from human or Council space. Initial reports described them as living ships, biomechanical entities that consumed matter and energy directly from stars and planets, growing larger and spawning more of their kind with each feeding. The Council, caught completely unprepared, dispatched observer missions that never returned. When they finally mobilized military assets, the response came too late. The Devourer vanguard had already established footholds in dozens of systems, consuming entire worlds and converting their mass into more Devourers. Chancellor Crick convened an emergency session of the full Council. "We face an unprecedented threat," the Chancellor declared, panic evident even through the formal diplomatic protocols. "All member species must contribute to the common defense." What followed was chaos. Council species that had maintained only token military forces for millennia found themselves unable to coordinate effectively. Strategic disagreements paralyzed decision-making. Some species, seeing the ineffectual response, broke from the Council entirely, fleeing toward the galactic core in hopes of escaping the advancing Devourers. As the situation deteriorated, Ambassador Hayes made an unscheduled appearance before the Council. Though technically still Earth's representative, she had not addressed the full assembly in over 2 years. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying across the now half-empty chamber. "Humanity offers its assistance in this time of crisis." The declaration was met with confusion, then derision. "What assistance could you possibly offer?" demanded Delegate Zor, who had been among the loudest voices calling for Earth's exile. "Your species is barely clinging to survival within your reservation." Hayes smiled for the first time in decades of Council appearances. "Perhaps you should check your long-range sensors, Delegate." Across galactic space, the sensors in question were suddenly registering hundreds of massive vessels emerging from hiding places in dead systems, asteroid fields, and artificial moons. The Ghost Fleet, humanity's secret armada, was revealing itself at last. And not a moment too soon. The Devourer main force had arrived, a vast swarm of living ships that blotted out stars as they advanced. Council worlds on the outer rim fell within days, their populations consumed, along with their planet's very substance. The few Council fleets that engaged were overwhelmed, their weapons barely scratching the Devourer's adaptive defenses. Then the human ships arrived. Captain Sarah Mitchell led the first squadron to make contact with the Devourer swarm near the Heracles cluster. Her 12 vessels, sleek, obsidian craft powered by controlled singularities, intercepted a Devourer force consuming its third inhabited world. "All ships, execute attack pattern Precursor 7, she ordered, her voice calm despite the nightmarish scene unfolding before them. The human vessels moved in perfect coordination, their AI tactical systems operating at speeds no organic mind could match. Another council taboo broken out of necessity. The Devourers reacted instantly, shifting forms to present smaller targets and extending energy-draining tendrils toward the human ships. But Mitchell had studied the Precursor battle records extensively. She knew what came next. "Initiate gravitational lance protocols," she commanded. From the bow of each human vessel, a coherent beam of distorted space-time lashed out. Not energy weapons that could be absorbed, but fundamental manipulations of gravity itself that ripped the Devourers apart from within. The monstrosities shuddered, their biological components separating from their mechanical elements as artificial gravity wells formed inside their bodies. Within 20 minutes, the Devourer force that had destroyed 3 worlds and all their defenders lay in fragments, drifting lifelessly through the system. Mitchell's squadron had not lost a single ship. Similar scenes played out across the galactic rim as humanity's Ghost Fleet engaged Devourer concentrations. The ships wielded weapons based on Precursor designs, but enhanced by human innovation and AI efficiency, combinations that proved devastatingly effective against the ancient enemy. Meanwhile, Paul Kelly commanded the evacuation fleet, massive city carrier vessels that descended on threatened worlds, loading billions of refugees in hours, using gravity manipulation technology to move entire urban centers at once. Species that had once voted for humanity's exile found themselves shepherded to safety by the very people they had condemned. As the Devourers recognized the threat humanity posed, they altered their strategy, consolidating their forces for a push toward the galactic core, directly through Earth's territory. This was the moment humans had prepared for across 3 decades of secret mobilization. Fleet Admiral Dan Miller, who had discovered the Precursor ruins all those years ago, now commanded humanity's combined forces from the flagship Defiance, a vessel larger than Earth's moon, powered by a contained black hole. From its bridge, he coordinated thousands of ships and millions of personnel in the most complex military operation in human history. "They're adapting to our gravitational weapons," reported Sarah Mitchell, now a rear admiral commanding the Vanguard fleet. "Energy dampening is less effective with each engagement." Miller nodded grimly. "As the Precursors predicted, implement Phase 2 countermeasures. All ships with quantum fold capability. Prepare for simultaneous jump on my mark." The culmination of humanity's preparation was about to be revealed. While the gravitational weapons had proven effective against individual Devourers, the Precursor archives had indicated they would eventually adapt. The true weapon against them lay in the quantum nature of their hive intelligence, a vulnerability that could be exploited only through synchronized attacks across multiple points in space-time. "Quantum fold drives active," confirmed the Defiance's AI tactical officer. "All 144 designated vessels report ready." Miller took a deep breath. "Execute!" Across a front spanning thousands of light-years, the specially equipped human ships vanished simultaneously, only to reappear inside the Devourer formations. their quantum signatures precisely calibrated to disrupt the hive mind connections. Each vessel detonated a dimensional charge that didn't destroy matter, but instead severed the quantum entanglement, linking individual devourers to their collective consciousness. The effect rippled through devourer forces everywhere. Severed from the hive mind, individual units lost coordination, their movements becoming erratic and ineffective. The largest concentrations turned on themselves, unable to distinguish friend from foe without the unifying intelligence. In this moment of weakness, humanity's main fleet struck. Led by Admiral Miller on the Defiance, they engaged the Devourer command ship, a leviathan the size of a small planet that coordinated the entire invasion. The battle raged for 7 hours as the command ship unleashed weapons that tore apart the fabric of reality itself. 317 human vessels were destroyed. Thousands of crew were lost. But the Defiance, its black hole core channeling power beyond anything the galaxy had witnessed in eons, penetrated the command ship's defenses. "All remaining power to the dimensional resonator," ordered Miller, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead as the bridge shuddered around him. "Target their central node." The weapon that fired was not designed to destroy but to erase, to remove its target from the causal timeline entirely. Developed from the most heavily encrypted precursor archives, it had never been tested at full capacity. A silent pulse emanated from the Defiance, invisible except for the rippling distortion it created in surrounding space. When it struck the Devourer command ship, there was no explosion, no dramatic disintegration, simply absence. Where the massive entity had been, empty space remained. Throughout the galaxy, every devourer simultaneously ceased to exist, erased from the timeline along with their progenitor. The battle ended, not with victory cries, but with stunned silence as defenders and refugees alike struggled to comprehend what had happened. 3 days later, Chancellor Crick convened what remained of the Galactic Council. Less than half the delegates were present, some dead, others still in transit from evacuation zones. The great chamber felt cavernous, its emptiness a testament to how close civilization had come to extinction. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Lisa Hayes of Earth," announced Crick, the formality of the introduction at odds with the circumstances. Lisa walked slowly to the central podium, her aged frame belying the steel in her spine. Behind her stood Jake Morrison and Admiral Cooper, the three who had stood in the same chamber 35 years earlier when humanity was condemned to exile. "Honored delegates," Lisa began, her voice stronger than her appearance suggested. 35 years ago, this council voted to exile humanity from the galactic community. Today, I stand before you to inform you that we never left. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The fleet that saved countless worlds, the technology that defeated the Devourers, the evacuation ships that rescued billions, all of these were built in secret, while we pretended to withdraw as ordered. We defied your decree not out of arrogance or rebellion, but because we discovered what was coming." She gestured, and a holographic display activated, showing the precursor ruins, the ancient warnings, the decades of preparation. "We found what the oldest among you must have known, that the Devourers return cyclically, and that this time, humanity was positioned to be their first victims. Whether by design or cosmic chance, your exile vote placed us directly in the path of discovery, of the ruins that gave us the knowledge to save not just ourselves, but all of you." Chancellor Crick's eyes blinked in their peculiar sequence, but this time, Jake recognized it as shock rather than displeasure. "The Council wishes to understand," Crick said carefully, "why, upon discovering this threat, humanity did not bring this information before us." It was Admiral Cooper who answered, stepping forward despite his advanced age. "Would you have believed us, or would you have seen it as a desperate ploy to avoid exile? Would you have been willing to embrace the technologies we needed to develop, the AI integration, The quantum manipulations, the very weapons that saved you, all things forbidden by council law. The silence that followed was answer enough. Resolution 7849B is hereby revoked, declared Chancellor Crick, after a long consultation with the remaining Inner Circle members. The species designated human is recognized as a full member of the galactic community, with all associated rights and privileges. The announcement was met with something humanity had never before heard in the council chamber. Applause. Delegates from worlds that had been evacuated by human ships, species that would have perished without the Ghost Fleet's intervention, rose to their feet, appendages, or tentacles in acknowledgement. "Guardians of galactic space," called out one delegate, using an honorific previously reserved for the eldest council species. The title was taken up by others, echoing through the chamber until it became a chant. "Guardians, Guardians, Guardians." Jake Morrison, now in his 70s, exchanged glances with Lisa and Cooper. None of them had expected this outcome when they set Operation Exodus in motion all those years ago. They had hoped for survival, perhaps eventual reconciliation, not to be elevated to saviors. In the years that followed, the galaxy entered a period of unprecedented rebuilding and cooperation. The barriers that had separated council species for millennia began to dissolve as joint reconstruction efforts brought diverse beings together in common purpose. Jake, though officially retired, found himself traveling between recovering worlds, documenting the changes reshaping galactic society. On the once pristine world of Exile, now scarred by devourer feeding pits, he watched as human terraforming experts worked alongside native ecologists to heal the damaged ecosystem. "Did you ever imagine this would be the result?" asked Dan Miller, also aged but still commanding the respect of everyone they encountered. "When Cooper gave that signal in the council chamber, did you think we'd end up here?" Jake shook his head, watching as a mixed group of human and Exarian children planted indigenous trees in reclaimed soil. "We were just trying to survive. Everything else, the ruins, the devourers, this new alliance, it all seems like some cosmic joke." "Or cosmic purpose," suggested Miller. "The precursors left those ruins knowing someone would find them eventually. Of all the species in the galaxy, we were the ones exiled to exactly where we needed to be." On worlds throughout council space, human-developed technology was transforming recovery efforts. Lisa Hayes, though well into her 80s, led the committee overseeing the integration of AI-driven medical programs across all affected species. Programs that once would have been banned under council law, but were now eagerly embraced by populations devastated by the devourer assault. Perhaps most significantly, the ghost colonies that humanity had established in secret became the foundation for a new type of galactic community, one built on principles of expansion and innovation rather than stagnation and control. Species that had been relegated to minor roles in the old council hierarchy found new opportunities in these frontier worlds, bringing diverse perspectives to challenges that had once seemed insurmountable. On the 50th anniversary of the Exile vote, Jake stood with Lisa and the few other surviving architects of Operation Exodus on the observation deck of the New Earth orbital station. Below them, the homeworld gleamed blue and green, its population now stabilized through colony expansion rather than council-mandated restrictions. "We did what we had to do," Lisa said softly, watching shuttles ferry representatives from 100 worlds to the anniversary summit. "We lied, we deceived, we broke every council law, and in doing so, we saved them all." Jake nodded. "Exile was the best thing that ever happened to us. It forced us to become what we needed to be." Behind them, the doors slid open to admit Chancellor Crick, the same being who had pronounced humanity's exile half a century earlier. Age had turned the Chancellor's translucent skin nearly crystalline, but those 7 eyes still blinked in their distinctive pattern. "I come to offer what my predecessor could not," Crick said, approaching the elderly humans. "Understanding And gratitude. Jake exchanged glances with Lisa. After all these years, after all humanity had accomplished, the Chancellor's words still carried unexpected weight. "The archives of the Inner Circle have been opened," continued Crick. "They confirm what some of you suspected, that certain ancient members knew of the Devourer cycle. They believed concentration and sacrifice of younger species might satisfy the hunger and spare the core worlds. Yet you joined the vote to exile us," Lisa noted, no accusation in her tone, merely observation. "I did," acknowledged Crick. "Out of ignorance and fear. I could not see that in pushing you away. We were positioning you to become our salvation." Outside the viewport, a formation of ships from the Ghost Fleet, now officially known as the Guardian Armada, passed in ceremonial procession, their quantum drives leaving traces of blue light against the blackness of space. "If the choice came again," Jake asked, "would the Council vote differently?" Chancellor Crick's eyes blinked in sequence. But this time, Jake recognized it as the gesture of deep reflection. "I cannot speak for others, but I have learned this. True strength lies not in isolation, but in diversity. Not in restriction, but in innovation. These are the lessons humanity has taught us, at great cost to yourselves." As the Chancellor departed, Jake turned back to the viewport, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. Somewhere down there, in secured archives, the original Operation Exodus plans were preserved, desperate measures drafted by people who believed they had no choice but defiance. They could not have known their defiance would forge a new future for the entire galaxy. That exile would become their crucible, unity, their strength, and moral courage their legacy. In the end, humanity had not just survived exile, they had transformed it into the salvation of all.